motivations for exerting control, especially our own. Jesus was talking about his impending rejection, suffering, death, and ultimate resurrection when Peter interrupted. He interrupted and criticized Jesus for what he was saying. Jesus was declaring the power of letting go of control precisely as Peter tries to control the moment, the message, and the man. Peter found out in that exchange that trying to control Jesus will get you labeled Satan. Whenever we're talking about control, we should be investigating motivations for exerting control, especially our own. What may have been controlling Peter that day was fear. Fear is always seeking to motivate us, always subtly vying for control of us, stalking and shaping our worldview, our politics, our relationships, even our lives with God. There is a direct correlation between how much we attempt to control others and our own lack of freedom. What Jesus was proclaiming openly before he was interrupted was his refusal to be obsessed with control over his reputation, his enemies, the nature of his death, or the means by which God will redeem the situation. But Jesus goes further. He uses Peter's faux pas to gather and instruct a crowd on how to be free. Keeping one's mind on divine things rather than human things is where he starts. Pragmatically, that looks like the daily application of Jesus' words, stories, and example to all we encounter. And then he picks up where he was before the interruption. The only way to save your life is to give it to God. Otherwise, you'll squeeze the thing so tight it will become lifeless. That so many of us struggle with fear-induced control issues is understandable, but it's not inescapable. Notice, even Jesus doesn't try to control us. Just an invitation into a deeper relationship with the one who can be trusted with the control of all the worlds.
Beautifully done. Ken, will you begin with the first reading?
A reading from the Gospel according to Mark. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowd to him with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels."
Thank you, Ken. I'm not sure how these things got distributed, but whoever's got Genesis 12, 1 through 7, would you? Thanks, Becky Ann.
A reading from the book of Genesis. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran. And they set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him.
In Genesis 15. All right.
Another reading from Genesis. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, your reward shall be very great." Abram said, "O Lord God, what will you give me, for I continue childless in the heir of my house, Eliezer of Damascus?" And Abram said, "Behold, you have given me no offering, and a member of my household will be my heir." And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, "This man shall not be your heir, your very own son shall be your heir." And he brought him outside and said, "Look toward the heaven, and number the stars, if you are able to number them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." And he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness.
16.
Okay, another reading from Genesis. If I have the names right, I'm sorry for that. Now Sarah, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar, and Sarah said to Abram, "Behold now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarah. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar and the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. And Sarah said to Abram, "May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to your embrace, And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarah, Behold, your servant is in your power. Do as you please. Then Sarah dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her.
And Jim, you finish this up?
A reading from Genesis. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you and may multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham. For I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. Continuing with 17, chapter 17. And God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be your name. I will bless her, and moreover I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of peoples shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said to himself, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. God said, No, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year. When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham.
Yeah, the last.
Yeah, there's 21, so what you do is finish 21.
The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age.
I hesitate to think about changing diapers at 100 years old.
I was thinking that, like, worse than reproducing is like raising a child.
Raising a child, 115 years old, and you have an angry adolescent in the house. It just doesn't sound like fun. All the readings make me think about trust this morning. There's this overworked cliche, let go, let God. And I think that that's really where we're going in today's readings. Can you imagine being told you're going to father a child at 93 and trust that that's going to occur? I knew from a very early age what I wanted to do career-wise. And I went in that direction, but I didn't have any understanding where it would take me or how I'd end up or how I'd make a living. I just knew this is the thing I wanted to do. And I guess I trusted God in that circumstance to lead me. What other examples of trust have we got in the room?
Again, some of you may have heard this story. Long time ago, I was working when America Online first came out in like 95, something like about the time of Windows 95. And I had found a channel of America Online that was called Online Psych. And since I'm interested in mental health kinds of things, I gravitated there and found message boards where people were talking about their feelings and their issues, and of course I just lapped all that up. And so I jumped in and I started responding and talking about my issues and helping them with their issues and all this. And so my responses got noticed, and I was asked if I wanted to be a volunteer for Online Psych. And I said, sure, I'll do the message boards. I enjoy that. And so, and I did, and it was fun, and I enjoyed that. But then one day, the person in charge contacted me, and she said, we need someone to run the, today it would be called like a Zoom meeting or something, but back then it was called chat, I think, on, for dissociative identity disorder people, on Friday evenings from 7 to 9. Would you be willing to do that? And I thought, no, I have no interest in doing that at all. I didn't say that to her, but that was my initial thought. I was a message board person, not a chat person, and I knew what I liked and what I didn't. But I was thinking about it. I didn't want to make a hasty decision, and I was thinking about it, and I don't know where this came from, but somewhere I saw this tiny, tiny, tiny little light way off in the distance in my mind when I thought about doing that chat. Just a tiny little speck. And I thought, it was similar to what you were saying, John. I thought, I think I'm supposed to do this. And so I was like, okay, sign me up. And I did, and then the rest of it was long and involved, but it really was the decision that has charted the past 25, 30 years of my, or whatever, 20 years of my life, through a lot of twists and turns into a profession and career that I love. So that was just a trusting of that little teeny light. I just knew it was something I was supposed to follow.
When you first posed this question, my first response interiorly was, well, I can give you a whole list of things where I failed in trust. But as Susan was talking, it kind of bubbled up as probably one of the most pivotal things in my life. When I was 25 years old, which was a long time ago, and about a year out of the closet, and as a young, stupid, single, lonely gay man, giving God a list of the things I wanted in a companion, and very superficial stuff looking back. And I always say God kind of laughed at my list, and one day God sent Barry, who is now my husband, spoiler alert, who did not fit my petty little superficial checklist. But on our second date, we knew each other in person, Barry said to me, the Holy Spirit told me you're the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And I was like, huh? But I took that in faith, and being the kind of person I am who dives into things, I dove into that person and that experience that did not fit my checklist, but it was what God was presenting. And yeah, spoiler alert, 34 years later, here we are, married, and there you go.
That's one good story. Anyone else?
Control. Wow. And someone who's largely anally compulsive, it's, no pun intended, a sensitive topic. I look at my house and think about the adage that the neater your house is, the messier your head is. And my house is so compulsively neat. It's frightening to think about what's happening in my noggin. But I very much want to be in control of things all the time. And it's a survival thing, truly. I don't think there's anything wrong with attempting to order your environment. But what I find is that so many circumstances present themselves without my having any role in it at all. And I think of the outcome of those being grace-filled. So I'm not in control of these circumstances. I'm not planning on them in any way. But they happen, and the outcome often is positive. Often. So what about control in your life? Becky Ann, what can't you control that you'd like to control?
Oh, that list would be long.
Well, the thing that came to mind initially was everything other than my direct choices and actions. It was like most of everything, including all the humans in my life, are outside of my control. And the pets in my life also outside of my control.
Jim, can you control your students?
No, not very well. I let go of that a long time ago. I just want to get back to trust for a minute.
Yeah.
Because in the readings, the trust is all one-sided. It's all God trusting in His creations, Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah are deeply skeptical. So this isn't going to happen. You're out of your mind. What are you talking about? Dream on. But the Lord keeps coming back, and He keeps coming back. So it's skepticism on the part of the human beings, and then laughter. I mean, Abraham laughs, and then he calls his child laughter, Isaac.
How does that mean laughter?
Yes, Isaac means it's Hebrew word for he laughs.
Or she laughs, is the case maybe.
Yeah, I love it.
So, control, well, there's only, God is always in control. And what will happen, because another big thing here, apart from trust and control, is patience. It takes a long time. You just have to wait.
I was struck by the readings. Well, my partner Louis' big complaint is a classic complaint of God. Why does He let bad things happen to good people? And one of the aspects of today's reading is that God ceded so much control to us. He adores us, I think. We are very much the happy fruit of His creation. But He also said, I've given you all the tools you need to make the right decision. If you don't make it, I'm not going to rescue you. And He's not going to swoop in and take control of disastrous situations. And for Louis, the idea that an all-powerful, infinite being can't swoop in and save us from the Holocaust, or for that matter, save us from ourselves, makes him bitter, I think. But at the same time, I think this is an interesting take on God giving us the control of our lives and as a society too.
I don't know if I've really ever thought about this before or not, but what really struck me in reading through the scriptures were the notes that put into context, okay, this story started when Abram was 75 years old. It came to fruition when Abraham was 100 years old. 25 years. From a human perspective, yeah, I'd be going nuts no matter what kind of message okay, how's this happening? 2.5 decades here, God. Hello? I mean,
it goes back to Jim's point about patience.
That's my human weakness and need for control and lack of patience. 25 years to receive a promise would be a severe trial to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a slightly different take on various of these topics. I feel like I have very little control over the events that happen in my life. I have not total, but a lot more control over how I respond to them. And if I choose to respond with anger or resentment or bitterness or desire for revenge or whatever I do, that's hurting me more than anyone else. And what I feel like is I hate change also. John knows, he's been listening to me complain a bit about some of the changes that are going on. But I do value growth over pretty much everything. And what I have learned is that when I am forced to take a different path, to go in a different direction, again, it's up to me. But if I choose to, I can figure out what I can learn from that. And maybe what good things I can get from that and give to others from that. I like the idea of, okay, this bad thing happened, but how can I turn it into something good? What can I do here? And sometimes I have to get over myself for a while first, but usually I can get there.
I'd like to get back to Peter for a minute. It's a familiar story, and the doubt and misunderstandings of the disciples. None of them understand who Jesus is and what he's trying to do. And in that story, I wouldn't go immediately to control. Peter is trying to control the situation. I'd be a little kinder to Peter and say he's being concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, here's your beloved teacher saying, "Oh, they're going to arrest me and kill me. I'm going to put to death, this horrible death." What would any of us say?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, sounds good. Yeah. You say that. No, don't say that. No, that can't be.
Very good.
But then Christ's response is harsh, which is also typical. I mean, Christ does not give easy answers or responses. He can be extremely harsh. A little sympathy for Peter.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
We're to the end of this, and I want us to take away something to carry us through the week. And the last discussion point looks like a good place to start. How do you feel the Spirit inviting you to go deeper in relationship with God, who can be trusted with control? What specifically do you need to do to accept that invitation? We're back to the let go, let God. What do you need to be able to do that? in my case, I think I thought about my prayer life as we've been chatting here, and I never ask for anything specific from God. I don't ask for pretty weather for a picnic. I don't ask for to win the lottery. I only talk to God to talk to God. And I think at the heart of that is my not trusting God to deliver on a request. And so I stopped making requests and pitch it as a conversation. Does anyone here pray specifically for a thing or an action? Go ahead.
It's really interesting that you bring this up because I'm in a place of struggle with that right now. I'm kind of wavering. I have a practice that I try to do and fail sometimes every day of praying an Anglican rosary. And I do all kinds of different formats. But at the beginning of my Anglican rosary, I have this I do what I call setting my intentions for it. I always pray for the repose of the soul of my parents and first and greatest of my teachers. And then I have a list of my personal intentions. And, it's God, please do this. And I've been struggling with what that means to me and praying about. And sometimes I do I always pray for the repose of the soul of my parents and first and greatest of my teachers. But there are days when I say, okay, God, here's the list, you know it, but I'm saying it again because I'm saying it again. And sometimes I just say, okay, God, I'm just praying, you know what's going on. I'm not going to run the list today, but I'm still praying.
When you pose the question, what I became aware of is praying with my child and how when we pray for specific things, I do have that sense of what if this thing doesn't happen, and then how am I going to engage with a 10-year-old about how do we reconcile all of that? But before this piece of the conversation, I was aware of, it seems to me like any time where I've been able to act on trust, that is not something I've mustered myself, but like a gift that I've been given by God. And so I feel like what I need is to ask God for help with becoming more trusting and letting go of control. So that's specifically what I need in order to accept the invitation.
I've always been interested in the part of the catechism in the back of the Book of Common Prayer about the kinds of prayer that there are. And there are like 7 kinds of prayer. And I've always tried to kind of balance intercession and balance, the asking for things for all the other kinds, which include adoration and praise. And I think there's value in finding balance in the kind of prayer that we do, because it's easy to fall into the ask for something or ask for help for someone and think that that's the bulk of it. And as represented there, it's not the bulk of it. It's kind of just a small section.
I think about Annie in the Mott. She only has 3 word prayers: thanks, help, and I forget what the third one was. And there were only 3, and I've forgotten 30% of them.
It's wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
She's a great, thoughtful woman. Well, thank you all very much this morning. Let's pray together. In the middle on the bottom, the Reinhold Niebuhr prayer. And did everybody find it? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you all so much. We will go on to week 3 next week. That sounds suspiciously like the AA prayer. Did they steal it from Reinhold or vice versa? Did they steal it from Reinhold?
Yes.
They're non-denominational AA. I'm not supposed to be Christian. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that I had discussed.
Alex did
Well,
that.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
We
you so much.
appreciate the support.
We sure do. We appreciate everyone who comes.
Yes.
And we love the people who don't, but we don't love them as much.
Wisely put. Wisely put.
We went to the ASO
Yeah.
and heard the requiem
Oh, you were there last night?
Thursday night.
Thursday.
But they did it last night as well.
Yeah. We were there Thursday night to see Furlough Paradise. Or Paradise Furlough, I don't know which way it goes, which was down below in the
Oh,
Herbs.
yeah, I saw
Strong
it.
play.
Is it really?
I have had such mixed experience with the Alliance over
Yeah,
the
I
years.
heard everybody has.
But this is strong and emotional and insightful, and it's these 2 first cousins, African American women. One's on Ivy and works for Google. The other's on furlough from a felony sentence. And they shared so much in childhood, and they went different directions. And the anger towards the woman in prison, how could you do that to the family? The anger from the woman in prison, how could you abandon us and be so bougie? I bet they're both lesbians. I bet your girlfriend is white. And that was the most manly line in the whole play. I bet your girlfriend, of course she was in the fiction of the time. And it was such a strong, hard thing to hear. But in any case, the play was full of great lines. And
Wow.
And meanwhile, upstairs, you're got
Yeah.
the DA's healing.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's so amazing. I was just thinking, you have the words. You know,
Oh, they got a surtitle?
They had the titles up. And really, even after, you have this thunderous dies irae,
Yeah.
which comes back all the way through it. And then you have this just melody. The words are not that comforting.
Right.
But the music, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
wow. Sounds like you both had wonderful experiences.
Yeah. Thank you.